So again, like as stressful as the situation was and as many things as had gone poorly, I'm still thinking like summit 100%. Today, I'll be sharing a hiking story. Up front, I want to say that most of my hiking stories would be totally boring because everything went down in a normal way. That being said, I am sitting on a backlog of epic hiking stories, and this is one of them. The year is 2009, and I wanted to climb the tallest mountain in Costa Rica, Cerro Chirripo. It's about 12,000 feet tall. I happened to be in Costa Rica after graduating college in May of 2009 because I was doing photos and videos documenting a study abroad program that was there. So the first 3 weeks of my trip in Costa Rica, I was running through the rainforest up and down the mountainside, documenting this study abroad program on mammalian biodiversity for shade-grown coffee. And then in the fourth week, I took an extra week while I was there to focus on climbing this mountain in Costa Rica, Cerro Chirripo. So it just worked out well that we were staying at 4,000 feet. I was doing about 6 miles a day in the rainforest and in the mountains, getting in really good shape just as by virtue of this job. And in that fourth week, I go down to the mountain. I made my way there with taxis and a bus. Not speaking Spanish, it wasn't the easiest thing in the world just to get down there. Also, the hotels on the final stretch of the mountain itself are about 4,000 feet up the mountain are those final hotels on a muddy dirt road. So it took some coaxing between me and the cab driver to get him to actually take me to my hotel. He was getting a little nervous, and I picked up a good tip from him on how to ride the clutch in second gear while going up a hill, which I later used in Costa Rica when we went back for my honeymoon with Brianna after we got married in 2011. But anyway, I'm at this point. I'm at the hotel at about 4,500 feet. Everything's going well. And the way the trip landed, I had one day to climb the mountain. So I'm there the night before the day where I'm going to climb it. And I know that on the day I'm climbing it, I need to first get a certificate. So there's an office. I actually have to go down the mountain on foot, go to this office, get a certificate that I can climb the mountain and that I can stay at the shelter, which is around 9 or 10,000 feet. And then I also have to rent a sleeping bag because I don't have a sleeping bag. So I'm able to figure out with the folks at the hotel, where can I rent a sleeping bag in this small town? And roughly where is the office where I get the paperwork? And, then the day comes. I wasn't able to get the certificate the day before, so I have to do that the morning of. So I wake up early. I'm in great shape from 3 weeks of training. I'm thinking I've been sleeping at 4,000 feet, so I should be acclimated to the altitude, even though in the scheme of mountain climbing, 4,000 feet isn't that much. It's still going to dig into your performance a little bit. And as luck would have it, I just can't find this administrative office to get my paperwork. So I burned the morning of my ascent. I burned a few hours, 2-3 hours in the sun, in the heat, trying to find this office. And I'm sweating, and there's no plan B. This is just, it's either I climb the mountain this day. I've got my ticket home to fly home is on a certain day, so it's all or nothing. And I'm going like all around, going up and down roads. I don't have a map, so I'm just going up and down roads, keeping an eye out for this office. And ultimately, I find it. I get the paperwork, and I'm super, super dehydrated. So I get the paperwork. I actually go back to my hotel and just drink at least 32 ounces, like a full Nalgene of water. I take on some more water, and I've got all my food and water for the trip. But I just remember drinking as much water as I could back at the hotel. And then, ideally I would have stayed longer and drank more water, but the clock is ticking, and I'm really committed to summiting. It was actually be summiting the following day. On that first day, I just need to get to the base. There's like a shelter, an indoor shelter. Again, I want to say it's about 9,000 feet, maybe 10,000 feet. So I'm like committed, but my plan is falling apart. And after you get the paperwork, then you've got to find the trailhead. Again, not super, like I don't have a map, like straight up. I don't have a map. I don't have prior knowledge of where I'm going. I just kind of conceptually know there's an office to get paperwork and there's a trailhead. And once I'm at the trailhead, you go up. So I get to the trailhead with some work, again, like circuitous, just trial and error. Find the trailhead. The trailhead has a sign. It says it's about 5,000 feet. So I'm like a mile up at this point. And I've already burnt so much energy at this point. Like I hit the trailhead and I'm at the start, the official start of the trail, what should be the start. But I've already put in so much effort just getting the paperwork, getting the sleeping bag, finding the trailhead. And it's like, this is the peak hours of the day as far as heat and sun. And it was just killing me. And I was so depleted at this point. And keep in mind, I'm at 5,000 feet and I got to go up to 9 or 10 to get to this base. And like, I was so tired. I just laid down on the trail and I just said, I just need to quit 100%. I need to thoroughly quit for just a moment. I need to lay down on the trail and just give up on this dream of summiting just for a moment. And, you know, so that's what I did. I just lay down and like completely let go of everything. And after a few moments, I just got up and I was like, all right, I'm a new man. It's a new day. Let's do this. So I start marching forth. I'm going up the mountain and I am able to get into somewhat of a groove because I do have that fitness that I built up 3 weeks, you know, the 3 weeks of training prior. So as much as the plan is going really poorly, I've got this deep well of fitness to draw upon. And that's really my biggest card at this point, is to just dig deep. So I'm cruising up the mountain and I'm seeing groups about every hour. I'd see a group of people, maybe like 2 to 5 people at a time. And a lot of tourists. So there was a lot more English speaking in this population coming down the mountain as I'm going up it. And I just quickly chat them up as I'm going. I'm like, okay, what's the trail like? What's ahead of me? How's the base? What should I know? Do you think I have enough time in the day to make it? And everyone kind of said the same thing. They were like, okay, one, we're a little bit concerned for you because you don't speak Spanish, and that's just not a good idea in this context. And two, the only way you can make it to the base is if you go really, really fast. And so just, I'm hearing this and I'm in a position of absolute certainty where I'm giving myself a 100% chance of success. There's no doubt in my mind that despite some dehydration and some heat and some fatigue that brought me to the ground earlier, there's no doubt in my mind that I'm getting to this base tonight. And so as a consequence, there's no real fear. I'm just kind of feeling commitment, focus, and what's running through my mind is very small universe in my mind, because there's just so much focus on success. And I think success is inevitable. So, but I am hearing like group after group that's just like, yeah, what you're doing is weird. And the only way you can make it is if you go really fast. So I'm like, cool, I'm prepared to go really fast. And I'm going up the mountain and, you know, all things considered, feeling pretty good. It's almost as if once I was moving and once I was committed, that was just the gear I had to be in, and I was doing it. And another factor that is on my mind is just the weather, because having been in Costa Rica for some time, I knew the weather's pretty predictable. It's going to be good during the day, particularly during the morning, towards the beginning of the day. And then every afternoon, there's going to be some rain and thunder and lightning. So it's a race against the clock because I want to get indoors before it starts raining. I'm not really concerned about the thunder or the lightning, but in retrospect, that would be something to look out for. I was thinking more like I just don't want to be cold and wet. So I'm kind of racing against the weather too. And as I'm going up, like the weather was really good this day. I lucked out with the weather. And I probably got within half an hour of the base towards the top. And it did start to rain a little bit. And it got colder too. And kind of like it must have been ego. Like I definitely wouldn't have been this way today, but just this is 2009. I was probably 23. And so like I'm just wearing shorts, and because it had been hot earlier, I'm not wearing a shirt, and it's getting colder and it's raining. And I'm thinking like, oh, I'm gonna roll into the shelter without wearing a shirt, and it's gonna be raining and cold, and people are gonna think I'm a badass. Like that kind of like ego was what I was going through at the moment. And ultimately it got like cold enough where I had to put on a raincoat. And it was stupid. Like I should have put on more clothes sooner to just keep my core temperature warm rather than allowing myself to get cold and then react to that state. But I was really inexperienced at this point. And this was one of my first big hikes, probably my third big hike after Mount Olympus in Greece and Mount Washington in New Hampshire. So by the time I get into the base, like I'm cold, and I didn't realize how cold I was until I started to try to get warm, and I couldn't get warm. So I get in and I like towel off, do the paperwork, put all my clothes on, like everything I had, still cold. And it's a nice building. Like we're indoors. There's no wind or anything getting in. It's dry. People are eating. There's a kitchen. And there were these three people up there that like they could kind of tell that I was I was like a little taxed due to the cold, and I don't want to say disoriented, but maybe that's what it was. So they were just kind of like helping me out. Like, here's the kitchen, here's the pots and pans, there's some extra pasta, make yourself a warm meal. And I ended up eating dinner with them and having a great conversation. They had some chocolate. They gave me some chocolate. It was just a great time. Great time to meet other people and like kind of warm up with the social element. But I'm still like kind of cold at this point. And I'll have to check the height of this base. It was like 9 or 10,000 feet. And just because of the fatigue, what I attribute, like I couldn't catch my breath. So I think it was because of the fatigue, the like dehydration, just because I had gone so hard from 4,000 feet to 9,000 feet. I was like, my chest just like in and out, my lungs as almost panting, I was breathing really heavy, even when I was laying down trying to fall asleep. So I just had a big day. I was super, super tired. I was ready to sleep. I was trying to sleep, but just the motion of my chest going up and down, trying to catch my breath was so big that it was keeping me up. I couldn't fall asleep. And I've still got all my clothes on. I'm in my sleeping bag, trying to get as warm as possible, still not getting warm. And then eventually I do fall asleep, and I had set an alarm. So I woke up early the next morning. So again, like as stressful as the situation was, and as many things as had gone poorly, I'm still thinking like summit 100%. So I wake up early with my alarm. And when I wake up, like I don't want to say fine, but like, let's just call it fine. Like my breathing is totally normal. So something happened overnight where like I got the water I needed, I got the food I needed. I got comfortable temperature wise again. So I wake up and like, I'm feeling great. And rather than just like playing it cool and taking the gift of recovery, I just like was ungrateful for that gift and doubled down on kind of this reckless amount of commitment towards the summit. So it didn't take long on day 2, bridging that gap up to the final 12,000 feet, where again, I probably wasn't drinking enough water and probably was moving too quickly, not eating enough, like these things end up being a trend for me. And it's something that I need to focus on. And that's why when I did the 100-mile wilderness, I wrote notes to myself. It was Nick's principles for hiking. Drink water constantly, when in doubt, eat. And so that's what I did on the 100-mile wilderness. And that was like, I felt great for the entire duration of that 112-mile trip. So at this point in my life, it's lesson learned. But in 2009, I was young and just thought that you could willpower your way through anything, which you can't. So I get to a fork in the road, a literal like point where the road is a T. You can go left, you can go right, and there's a sign, and the sign clearly says you go, I believe it's left to the summit or right to these lesser mountains, because Cerro Chirripó is the tallest summit in Costa Rica, but this mountain range has a lot of other summits that are within 100 feet. So they're all equally, almost equal in height, but you want that ceremonial tallest mountain. So whether it was the altitude or the dehydration or whatever the case may be, I read this sign for the fork in the road, and I just like stood there for a while and I couldn't really read it and I couldn't make sense of it. And I did what I thought was the right thing. I thought I took the right direction in the fork in the road to go to the summit, but I took the wrong one just because my mind wasn't operating at 100%. So I ended up climbing one of these lesser peaks. It's like 100 feet less than the summit. Cerro Terbi, I want to say. And it's kind of a rock scramble to the top. No big deal, technically. And because I had gotten up early, no one else was on the trail anyway. And so then I'm up there. And just, the weather is great. The sun is coming up through the clouds. I've got the whole mountain to myself. I take some photos. And, one thing that's kind of noteworthy about this trip is that I had met Brianna in January of 2009. And then we started dating in March. And then in June, I'm off to Costa Rica. And then in July, I'm off to Spain. And like, we knew immediately that we were in love and that we were going to get married. But as like kids, basically, these are hard things to say or to admit to, even to yourself while you're experiencing them. Cause you're like, could this be real? This feels like it can't be, but also that it is. So, we loved each other at this point, but we had never said like, I love you. So I had this idea, I'm going to climb this mountain and I'm going to write a note to Brianna and take a picture of myself. I'm going to write like, I love you, and then take a selfie. And then I'm going to get it printed. And when I come back from Costa Rica, before I go to Spain, I'm going to visit you in Maine and give you this printed picture of myself on top of this mountain. Because I'm going to do like, climbing a mountain is a selfish pursuit. I'm the only one who benefits from it. But I want you to know that I'm thinking of you while I'm doing that. Then I descend the mountain. The descent was eventful as well. Like everything I did to get up, I had to do in reverse. So I had to find the sleeping bag rental place again and return that. I had to go back to my hotel again. And the descent, like it was a difficult descent. Much more rain on the descent. And yeah, it wreaked havoc on my knees. It really hurt one of my knees. On the Mount Olympus trip, I hurt one knee, and then on this trip, I hurt the other knee to kind of balance it out. Again, another issue that I feel like I've learned how to accommodate and keep healthy since then. But just one more mark of inexperience on this trip was hurting my knee on the way down. And that could have been avoided just by having a map and doing fewer miles to get to the trailhead. And I got lost. I got lost on the way up the mountain, and I got lost on the way down. And both those times added multiple miles that I just didn't need to do. And those miles ended up making the difference between, being healthy and getting hurt. So, I mean, it's a bittersweet story, because I got to basically the highest mountain in Costa Rica and summited it by myself without speaking Spanish, and with a huge degree of unpreparation, but unpreparedness. So there's a lot to look at there that I'm happy with and proud of, and I think is impressive, but then also a lot of glaring errors and a lot of things that were stupid and marks of inexperience, and that later I learned how to improve on. It's a comedy of errors in a way. Overall, I had a great time when I was out there. I was psyched to get the summit at the end of the day. I'm also happy that it's a thing of the past, that 2009 is a distant memory now. And if nothing else, I got a pretty sweet photo out of it.